Good afternoon, morning, or night. I think it's mostly night for everyone. It is currently 5:46 my time, which I'm American. Thank God. Okay, so continuing, I got a set of questions for you, Hollow. Chris, you want to interject at any time. This is all regarding the new tech that have been released or publicly tested today by Gory and Premier Core with guard and tailing. So let's begin. So, Hollow, currently one of the bigger questions I'll start out with is the musket reload times. This affects the pace of battle, how fast you can get shots off, KDAs. How do you believe these new musket reload times affects the pace of the battle?
So ultimately, it's a big work in progress with all balancing stuff. It'll be we go too far one way and then too far the other way, and we have to keep going like that until we hit the middle that we're looking for. But I think we're looking for the stand and fight mentality to come back a bit. If anybody remembers old Waterloo, one of the best parts about that was the pacing of the battles. We really hit our stride there. It's been quite difficult to find that with the new tech, and so we're looking to bring back that the feeling where you could be locked in a fight with somebody and it could go back and forth, but it wasn't quite running literally up and down the map all the time as it can be. And at the beginning of the new tech, it was very much like that. Um, we want to enable that fast-paced fighting that people love, but also the battle itself needs to be slow-paced enough that there can still be room for like tactical plays and things like that. Um, Obviously, the reloads now will slow as you walk and as you crouch, which is a feature from old campaigns that we brought back. I don't think it was deliberately missed out from the new stuff. I think we just genuinely forgot to put that back in and didn't bother once we realized. I don't know if it's confirmed to stay as it is. Like I said, it's a work in progress. Gory will be making changes. There'll be another test battle tomorrow, I think. But based on the feedback, I think we'll be reducing the speed buffs a tiny bit, possibly. So that will be increasing the reload speed and maybe the walk speed as well.
All right, that's great, Chris. You have anything to say about that?
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people complained about when we released Barracks, for example. It was super high-paced. Like, it didn't feel like any of the old tech felt, and a lot of people didn't like the new tech because they thought that it was way too fast and it was too arcadey. And it did change a lot of how people played with having that reload and having like aiming or moving around and all that stuff.
I got a question personally. I don't know if this was answered before, but if you say are you making a new Waterloo map, or just new updates?
I think new updates. I'm not aware of any plan
well.
to make a new Waterloo map.
Yeah,
It's
I didn't
kinda
think
stupid to
you
make a
would.
new
I got a
one.
We do obviously want to make more maps for campaigns and things like that. Like specifically a new Waterloo map. I haven't heard anything about that, but we do want to get more maps done and things like that to diversify it a bit.
right. Personally, I'd have to ask a lot of people this isn't like a compare contrast thing, whatever. But in Blood and Iron as well as in the Waterloo at Home, they don't have the reticle that we do. It's an inaccurate thing. Are y'all ever gonna Are y'all doing? I'm not saying that I want to do away with it, but just wondering, are you guys gonna keep that in the next update that you're planning, or are you guys gonna shrink the reticle? What are you guys gonna do about that? A lot
Unless
of people find it
there's
too inaccurate.
yeah, it's very difficult. This reticle, there's a lot of design and stuff that goes into it that you don't really see. Some of you might remember the update where we kind of fixed it and it broke it, and then we fixed it again, and it's how it is now. The reticle doesn't always line up with where you're going to shoot. It's quite difficult to actually fix in that regards. The guns are quite inaccurate, so while we don't want the reticle to be like a point in the center of the screen, because you'd always miss basically, we don't want it to be too wide, because then what's the point in aiming? So I think we're looking to keep it roughly where it is now, but we might, I don't know. It's not my call to make, obviously. I haven't really seen the feedback regarding that.
Right. I'll let Nathaniel move on to his questions, and I know I think it's a genius. It is representative that muskets were not always accurate, and guns in general. It's not like in most video games where you have a point on the screen that you can do it. I know there are some tryhards that actually like take a Sharpie or whatever and put it in the middle of their screen for their muskets and stuff. I've seen some photos of that, but I'll turn it over to Nathan. Sorry about that. I just had to ask that.
Okay, next question is the respawn times. During very many charges is imperfect English, but we'll move on with it. During many charges in battle today, we saw that the respawn times were consistently bogging down the defense or the attacking sides during the charges. Does the development team plan to like adjust this to where you can respawn faster, or and just any change to increase the melee speed of the battle?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't give specific value changes and things because there's a lot of extra variables that go into determining the respawn times, but they're very hard to balance because it's so situational. You can find where, a recent annoyance has been you're chasing one line and then all of a sudden everybody can spawn in and the respawn timer hasn't shifted, it seems. Today, the respawn time was going kind of wacky. We definitely want to rein that in a bit because it was causing problems with the battle. We want to leave open the possibility of a well-timed, devastating charge that just runs through the enemy, but we want to remove the situations where a line just feels trampled over for no reason, like, just unfairly without any sort of way to counter it. So it's definitely a work in progress, and we should see a lot of changes to that over the test battles that come.
Well, Chris, do you have anything to say about that one?
Not much, but respawn stuff and charges and all that stuff was the thing before that we just didn't add into the new tech, and I'm sure that a lot of people were actually knew the idea of the retention when chargers and all of this stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Fortresses have been confirmed with HP. My question is, how do you guys plan for fortresses to be destroyed? With artillery, or by breaking down the gate by using your bayonet? I believe there was a function where if you stabbed the gate in the death stack, it would take heavy damage. So how do you guys plan to work this out when you guys do bring in forts with HP?
We'd love to add a modular destruction system. It, on first glance, looks doable. We haven't really looked into it very much. There's obviously a lot of more important features to come first to enable that destruction. But we would like to see artillery play a heavy role in siege battles and things like that. And possibly as well, we're thinking about extending it out into the buildings that are in the map. It would certainly bring a very interesting use of artillery in campaigns, for example, where you're able to, destroy a building or destroy the front of Huguemont or whatever. Again, not confirmed. It's something we'd love to do. And we'll certainly take a look at doing it in like that modular fashion, destroying a chunk of a wall or the chunk of the fort as a means to get inside or whatever.
Chris, anything to respond to that before I move on to the next question?
Nope.
All right, so I'm gonna go a bit off the questions I asked you, Hollow, earlier today. I just got a question, which is a pretty good question. Rambos, they are a huge issue with just flags being sniped and charged at. Again, we've tried to counter this issue with flag guards, but Rambos are a huge issue when a line is trying to move forward, move back, pull left. Just the whole ergonomics of a line's movement, Rambos kind of impede that. Is there any plan to change the way Rambos operate to where it's less appealing to be a Rambo, or will it just remain the same?
Yeah, I mean, already we've made lots of changes if you compare to the way back in the beginning of Waterloo. I can remember when Rambos first appeared, you used to literally be able to line up just to the side of a line and shoot into them, and that appeared very briefly at the beginning of this new tech as well. Ultimately, it's a case of a few players. I won't say maliciously doing it because obviously it's for fun, it's a game, where they're kind of bending the rules to play in their own way, in a way that we don't really want them to. And the issue is that if we are, stopping them doing that, we're going to end up impeding on the main experience for everybody. If we change the parameters regarding morale, it'll affect everybody. if we change the formations, it'll affect everybody. So we need to be very careful with making these changes. We do want to, of course, have no Rambos, ideally. But I don't think we'll ever get rid of them fully. I think there will always be some very motivated people. But at the moment, it's definitely a lot better than it was, and I think we're pretty happy with the direction we're going in. But we'll remain to see in the new tech how effective Rambos are with this balance change.
I mean, I think that we've already done a very good job at like making sure that Rambos aren't very efficient in battle. Like, if you notice, whenever your flag's too far away from another flag, you're not gonna be able to cap that flag in like seconds. Yeah, but it'll take a bit because you count as a Rambo whenever you're too far away from your flag. If you're close to your flag, you're basically in the company, and that does allow for those Rambo flag caps to not happen anymore, it was very annoying for the people getting flag capped and very fun for the people capping the flag. But I think that the question was that we should enable that again, and I don't think that's gonna happen. But most Rambos just do it out of their own interest to just have fun because the game's a little dry most of the time.
Right. I know like Nathaniel's questions, but like as a sort of it goes on this question. I know some people do, like you said, it is a game and people enjoy Ramboing. And I've heard of people making grenadier. I don't know if grenadiers are skirmishers, but usually people take off their bayonets so they can move faster. And I know that you are going on to cavalry and whatnot, but maybe in the future, do you guys ever have thoughts about like making I don't know, carbine? Or, do you ever, for skirmisher battalions and stuff, so Rambos don't become as prevalent? So,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
instead of having Rambos, we have, like, Rambo lions where, like, their whole job is to move fast and sort of still line battle, but break that mold a little bit and give those people some air to breathe and to enjoy themselves. Do you have
Yeah.
any plans on making skirmisher muskets or whatever?
Yeah, we do want to, as we bring in more than just, regular musket lines, we want to diversify a bit. So skirmisher lines definitely on that list with tweaks to their muskets or whatever. Hopefully that can make a big enough impact, but obviously, as we saw with the old Waterloo, the old campaigns, we ended up having the skirmisher lines play at like 1,000 studs away. So it'll be interesting to see. We do have carbines in the game at the moment, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're actually like functioning. I didn't try them, but
Oh, yeah, they might have them, but I've never seen them before.
yeah,
so.
Carbines specifically probably just for other units, but skirmisher muskets definitely is something we're looking to add. Whether we do or not, I'm not sure. But...
Right. Sorry about that, Nathaniel. I just thought it was a good question.
Ultimately, the dream is have everything in one. Like, have a line battle that can be a skirmish and all of this stuff. Like, that would be super fun. And we've already done different musket stuff. And as you can see, like, BA has their muskets, Prussia has their muskets, France has their muskets, etc., etc., etc. So it's not very difficult to implement. It's just a matter of being useful because, having a random company that just skirmishes around isn't the best for the battle and the meta that we have right now.
Yeah.
Like how we play as in the game. But it all changes depending on the game mode and all of the stuff.
Yeah, we ultimately want to have battles as a place where everybody can have fun, and whether you want to be, a cavalryman, artillery gunner, a line battle soldier in a line, or a skirmisher, whatever, that you can have all of that concurrently going on in one battlefield, and that's obviously a huge, tall order. It's a big ask. But we will work towards it, and that's kind of the direction we're going in. So we're prioritizing the most important parts of the gameplay that appeal to the widest audience, and adding little bits on the side and see if it works and things like that, basically.
So, Gory already confirmed this earlier today that there will be addition. There will be artillery inside of the new campaigns or Napoleonic Wars, wherever you guys are calling this game. And I believe the whole point of this is to have everything in one game. So we don't have like Lockmore, like how we currently have. We have Lockmore, we have different maps. You just have to go to one game and it'll teleport you to the same map, just like we had in campaigns. So with the addition or confirmed addition of artillery, I assume you guys are also going to go forth and say, Yes, we're gonna have cavalry as well.
Yeah, cavalry and artillery. I think we'll see a lot more intertwined gameplay than some people might expect. They both play off each other very, very well. And I think one of the failings of cavalry before was that they didn't really have a counterpart that was balancing them out almost. It was just the cavalry would fight the cavalry and the infantry would fight the infantry. And what we want is, if this battle is going to be everything happening all in one battle, we need it to be segmented out, of course, but we want there to be interaction between everything. So cavalry is not my personal favorite, and hopefully we can change it and have it actually fun. I don't think it was very fun last time for most people. But it's definitely something we want to get done, of course, yeah.
All right, so I'll go back on to the proper questions I was going to ask you instead of going off track for a second. So, sappers. In France, sappers are a decently big, important thing. Sappers are usually represented as the most senior rankers. Sappers, will they have building mechanics, axes, and other items like we have seen in Blood and Iron and other games that allow sappers to build?
We do fully intend to have the ability to create battlefield modifications and small structures and things like that. I think we want to avoid the full-on fort making that you can get in like Blood and Iron, or like Auto at Home is a better example. But we want the structures to feel a bit more permanent and important. So you might not be able to build like a whole soup kitchen, like in Blood and Iron, but definitely things like boarding up windows and doors to change the shape of a battlefield and limit access to buildings and stuff. That's definitely on the table. Again, this isn't something that we've looked into super deep. We haven't started coding this or anything like that. But absolutely something that we want. Very important for Siege gameplay, of course.
Okay, so moving on to nation development. As you before mentioned in this interview, that you have different muskets for Prussia, BA, and other nations. But I'm asking if nations, like for example, I'm going to just call a random nation, say Wittenberg, wanted to have their own musket that they used historically in Napoleonic Wars. Could they make the model and then transfer it over to you guys to put it into the game for them?
Muskets are very high poly by nature, so we're looking to keep muskets all in-house at the moment. But we are in a very good position of where in the Napoleonic Wars, there were only about 3, maybe 4 muskets in use across all of the nations. It would be basically the French musket, the Charleville, the Brown Bess, used by British pretty much only, I think, and then the Potsdam musket and its various incarnations. The differences between a lot of them are so small that we don't really need to represent them with separate models and things, but we can give them the correct name and everything like that. Yeah, in game.
Most muskets are visually exactly the same, except for very little things that actually varies like so much that we could barely find much reference. For example, when we did the Potsdam, it was literally just some pictures where the Brambus and some pictures where the Charvel. It's
it's not like documented well at all.
It's not very. There's a lot of muskets that were used over the years, but they're all visually the same, basically.
Yeah.
And we've also put a lot of tricks up our sleeve to make muskets and to make everything more optimized. So for something like muskets, I don't think that we'll be seeing nations submitting muskets or their own weapons because they probably wouldn't be on par to what we really want for performance.
Okay, next question I have for you is a large one, which is asked by many. So the new spacing is heavily disliked by many, using many again. But does the development team have any plans to adjust this key game mechanic? Because I do know that a lot of people were complaining earlier today about it just being very like you had to have 4 people in a line together to get the line bonus. And I mean when I mean line, I mean probably less than double column spacing.
Yeah, so this is another experimental change that we made. Making these, we went in blind because the only test we can do as developers is maybe an 8v8 if we're all on, a 4v4 if all 8 of us are online, sort of thing. But we want to, I think, based on the feedback we got from today's battle, we're looking to bring it maybe halfway towards the original value. We want forming up and the formation you take to be important and rewarding, but not to the point where it will ruin the fun if you do it badly. We don't want, we want there to be a significant improvement between a well-drilled line and a fresh recruit line, but we don't want it to take the fun out of the game where you're constantly stressing about how close you are, sort of getting a ruler out to measure or whatever.
Chris, anything else to add to that one?
No, I think good.
I'd like to have something. I think you're talking about like how like line formations and you're like we're resolving some issues with it. Would you think about adding like say a square formation like since cavalry is going to be a thing? Would it be prevalent to sort of counteract some of the OP stuff that cavalry have? Would you have the little say square bonus that the line does or whatever? I'm not sure that line has a bonus, but if everybody forms a certain box, I don't know if that's even programmable, but would you ever think about adding that into the game?
Well, in the previous old campaigns, we did have the brace where you'd crouch with your bayonet out, and it would let you, but I think instant kill cavalry if they walked onto you. We do obviously want to have some way of infantry to directly counter cavalry rather than just waiting for their own cav to come by. Whether it can be programmed into a box, it can be programmed, but whether it's performant is an entirely different question. And also, if it's practical, I don't think any line would be able to actually form literally a square. Even a circle is quite difficult to do. It would mostly be a blob, I think.
I think you underestimate some people in Waterloo are pretty like disciplined. I'm not like, even though I'm in Andor, I'm not trying to just like simp for Andor and say, oh, Andor can do it. I've actually seen very talented. I've seen talented people in France.
Yeah.
I've seen in BA. Like I still respect BA because of their skill level.
Well,
I know that there are at least regiments that can do it. So I wouldn't really like cross out that it would just form a blob, But I was just saying, open it up for future ideas. You know what I mean?
If I can say something, we've had cavalry before, so we know what this. We all know what this is like. At first, it was very, very interesting, very nice to have cav, but people started to dislike it very much because it was annoying, and it's something that I personally see that most people overhype some features like cavalry, and they want it so bad because they want to ride the horse, but they don't want to be in the opposite end fighting the horse because it will be pretty annoying.
That's why we need counteractions.
At first, it was people formed squares. People were all drilled in all of this, but cav just got too annoying. People just started blubbing up, and people didn't want to even fight with cav. So, yeah.
Right.
Okay, I got one more question for you guys.
Good, yeah.
Sorry, go. I got one more question for you guys, and then I'll probably let you go or take some audience questions. So morale is a very large issue, it's a very large, important mechanic inside of campaigns. So the new technique is, or from what my experience in 2 battles today was, to just spam Q after one large chant, and you have almost infinite morale. It's really abusive. Do you guys plan to limit that, or do you guys just plan to leave it how it is and become the new meta when charging or when just in a line?
I think chanting is slightly fallen behind. It obviously used to be the only way to get morale, really. We do like the volley mechanics and things like that, and like I said, chanting's fallen a little bit behind. Maybe it's gone too much the opposite direction now. So we will rein it in, I imagine, and try to go for what is most fun, whatever that may be. There's a lot of test battles that need to be done so we can actually gauge. But ultimately, chanting has kind of turned into something where you just, take aim, fire, and then 3, 2, 1, chant. 3, 2, 1, chant. Take aim, fire. 3, 2, 1, chant. And it's just a very rhythmic, repetitive cycle. And if we can get out of that, that would be great. So if we can, even just slow it down a bit, I think that would be good. I'm not entirely sure what plans there are to change it. I didn't see anything regarding feedback of like OP morale or anything like that. But I did see a lot of people complaining about morale being low, making charges quite difficult. So we will obviously try to improve that. Nobody likes fighting with low morale, and we want to use low morale as like a "you're doing this wrong" sort of thing, like a slap on the wrist to stop a line from from spreading out too far or sending Rambos off or whatever. But we will like to keep it as a central mechanic that governs how you play the game, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's it for me. If you guys are willing to stay here till 6:15, just to answer a few more questions from the public.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if you guys want
I have
to ask
something
any
that I wanted
questions,
to.
put it in general. Or Chris.
Uh,
Sorry,
I
Chris.
saw a
If you want.
question. Yeah, I saw a question that was pretty interesting that I wanted to clear up. Uh, you know, it was about like bringing drums and instruments back, and I've talked about this before. It's very sad because while we love to, we'd have to like get our own music and get our own stuff. So it's not that easy. There's a lot of features that we've wanted to put in, like nation anthems whenever you win, or etc. Uh, that we haven't been able to put in because copyright is the thing, and all these orchestras and music come from musicians that have copyrighted work. So for the better, we've made sure that we are making everything ourselves, that we are making all these audios ourselves, that we are making even music ourselves, to make sure that we can actually have all these features that we really wanted. But I think that for now, drums and fives and all of this is too far-fetched for us to really focus on.
Yeah,
When
it's gonna have to be on the
it would
back bench.
it would take a lot of money and it would take a lot of effort for something that would be used for like what, Mora. So, yeah.
Okay. So, question. This is just a far-fetched one that I heard, with a little video in tow. During, I'm not asking this. It's just a little speculation. But so I was sent a video from the old guard, shooting their musket and blue smoke. Was that just because of the nighttime effect, or was that because they were able to change the color of their smoke?
I don't know anything about changing the color of smoke yourself. I think it was probably just the nighttime effect. You might not notice it because you don't see the direct comparison, but our nights in our games are incredibly blue, so we can avoid having them pitch black and grey and depressing. And in the daytimes, they're bright orangey pink. So you'll see that in the smoke. We'll try and tweak the color of the smoke and things like that to not have that if it's a distracting issue. But I personally haven't seen it, so I don't know how bad that is.
It's sort of a silly thing, like will the color of the cannon smoke be like soft gray or like deep slate gray?
It'll be whatever it looked like in real life as best we can get it. So I think similar to the musket smoke, if I'm not mistaken, but I haven't looked at a cannon being fired for a very long time, so I'm not sure.
Okay,
Also
it's
pretty sure that
6:15. Oh, sorry.
I'm also pretty sure that the blue smoke is because of ambient occlusion from Roblox ambient. So.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a bug there with the. I just saw the video.
One last question, and this is probably the last question before we wrap up. So, for Asian nations, like Tokugawa, they're asking this, and it's totally speculation, but is it possible for sabers to be katanas? Just off of a realistic standpoint, because in the Napoleonic Wars, the samurai, as they would be called, would carry katanas instead of having sabers. Is that possible that we could have that for Tokugawa and other nations that did that?
Mechanically, yes, but I'm going to say unlikely. It depends on performance. Ultimately, will be the biggest factor there, and also on the possibility that that'll be abused. I don't really want to see the whole of France running around with katanas or anything like that. You have to consider as well: is it going to look like a katana if they're holding it like a saber? The animations definitely not going to get changed. So it will
Right,
need to fit
because-
within like just a reskin of the weapon. Basically, it'll have to be a
Right.
pretty short, weirdly shaped katana.
I've
Have it.
heard that there are some battalion, like I think there's the Inquisitor, like they're this part of Spain. They wear like red outfits and they have swords like on them, but they don't use them as weapons and stuff. I've heard some of the people from Spain ask like questions of whether like swords will ever be added, and it doesn't seem that it'll work because people will just charge, and unless someone comes up with like some inventive way to like balance it, I don't know if that's gonna be a thing.
Yeah, I think we don't really want to add swords to the loadout that you get. It would be the musket, and then swords would be given to separate units. But maybe skinning the sword to whichever sword you should have, if you get one, would be an option. But we won't be, we don't want to give all the French elite units a little dagger.
But
We'll
other
definitely like have the kind of a system like we do already with muskets, with many different weapons, not only sabers but pistols and whatever. But like I think that for nation customization right now, flag poles and all of that stuff, like Tokugawa has the huge flag. I think that's as far as it's probably gonna go. Uh, it sounds very, very difficult to have to make a set of animations and make sure that all these assets are well unoptimized and ready and game ready to be
And
added for a
correctly
single
sized as
nation.
well.
Yeah.
well,
It's a lot of privileges already for some nations that are very special, like historically, that many nations, don't have because they are just normal Napoleonic nations.
mhm. So it's 6:18 my time, Eastern Standard. We thank you for coming out here, Chris and Hollow. It's Chris, Hollow, myself, and Roman on stage. So if there's any last remarks you guys want to give out before we end this and wrap this up.
Well, I'd like to say thank you for having me up here. It's been fun.
I was bored,
Chuck
so I
in,
joined.
Well, other than
I'll
that,
chuck in an Andor Eternal there.
yeah,
And/or internal.
Eternal.
it's eternal. But
Yeah.
The
continuing,
Floyd of Flanders.
other than that, everyone's free to go, and this is the end of the podcast. So have a nice day.